All right, guys. So today I want to talk about cases once again. And I know we've been talking about cases a lot lately, but this video is going to be a little bit different. When I have been talking about cases lately, whether it's the fact that I own a lot of cases and I'm buying cases, that, I'm recommending cases to be one of the best purchases for CS2 investing right now or whatever, I've been getting increasingly more and more comments about being like, hey, you're crazy or you're stupid or whatever for, buying so many cases or trusting in cases or whatever, because isn't Valve going to remove them? Aren't they going to get banned? Aren't cases going to be dead in the future? Like, aren't you just going to own something that's going to zero? Are you scared? Are you worried about that happening? Whatever. So in this video today, we're going to be talking about the possibility of this happening. What if Valve does decide to ban cases? What is going on with cases? Is Valve going to ban cases? We're going to be covering all of that in this video today. Today's video is sponsored by SkinSwap, and they're offering you a free skin worth up to $50 when you use code GERM and complete your first trade with them today. It's very simple. It's very easy. All you have to do is click on the skins that you're looking to get rid of, and then scroll through the amazing selection of skins that they have available and click on the ones that you want instead. It's that simple. It's that easy. And also, SkinSwap is also offering a very, very cool opportunity, the ability to buy skins for you from Chinese marketplaces. Prices are very, very cheap in China right now. There are some great deals to be had, and SkinSwap is going to help you get your hands on your favorite skins for an amazing price today. So definitely go check them out with that first link in the description below. So we have this article here from PC Gamer where it says EU MEPs, which I think is just like members of parliament, agree on recommendation for Europe to make full use of its powers to ban loot boxes for minors and social media for those under 16. And I think the fact that EU has been talking about this, this has been an idea floated around for years now. There's been people, wanting to ban loot boxes and wanting to ban gambling in games, and people who've been worried about Counter-Strike specifically, because obviously Counter-Strike, there has been a lot of different gambling kind of controversies throughout Counter-Strike and stuff like that, whether it was just like, straight up slot machines and actual gambling, or even just the gambling mechanics of loot boxes and capsules and case openings and all this stuff and trade-ups, and there's a million different ways you can gamble in Counter-Strike or with Counter-Strike items or whatever, and people have wanted to crack down on that for a long time, especially because obviously Counter-Strike is a video game. And yeah, I think the Counter-Strike, player base is getting older, and it's, mid-20s, late 20s, even people in their 30s now. It's not like a game for kids specifically, but obviously kids do still play this, and there's been plenty of kids who have, been exposed to gambling either directly or indirectly through Counter-Strike and Counter-Strike 2. And it's not just Counter-Strike, it's all these other games. There's a million gacha mechanics and mobile games and whatever, but obviously Valve makes a lot of money off people opening cases and people doing a lot of this gambling stuff, and this has been a lot of the big popularity of CS. So once people hear, stuff like Europe wants to make full use of its powers to ban loot boxes, there's all these people that start thinking, man, cases are about to get banned. Cases are doomed. What are we going to do? Are my cases, or are all cases in Counter-Strike 2 eventually going to be worth nothing because you're not even going to be able to open them anymore? Or Valve's just going to remove them, or Valve's going to take them for you. And again, people have been asking me, am I worried about that? Telling me how stupid I am for investing a ton in cases because they're going to get removed or whatever. And that is what I think is super, super interesting. So I wanted to cover, what the heck is going on and what some of the possibilities are here with all of this. So over the last few months, we've seen the EU ramp up its effort to tackle the possible harms of the online landscape. And again, I'm an American. I've never been to Europe. I don't know that I ever plan on going to Europe anytime soon. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on what the heck is going on over in Europe. But I know, Europe loves to crack down on, all these different things. And in some ways, they do a lot of good for their people or for the world or whatever. But oftentimes, I also think, they maybe overstep their boundaries or overreach a little bit, or just, try to be too involved in controlling people's lives a little bit too much. I know I see them, go to war with like big American tech companies and stuff like that all the time. And again, sometimes they're in the right, but they're not always in the right. Sometimes they're trying to do a little bit too much, trying to do some crazy stuff too. So I don't know. Again, I'm not an expert on what's going on over in Europe. I don't really know. I'm just going based off of some of the stuff I hear. Whether that's the threats of AI posing or threats to minors, whatever, on the latter point, gacha and Overwatch gamers need to batten down the hatches, because it looks like the political block might be coming for your loot boxes if you're a minor anyway. So that's an interesting thing to note here. Again, they're mostly trying to focus on, if you are a minor. They're not necessarily trying to come for this stuff altogether. That is a very, 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 very big key point here. And again, I know a lot of people have been saying like, oh, Valve is preparing for the day where there's going to be no more cases, or Valve is already starting to prepare, to remove cases from Counter-Strike 2, because we recently got the Genesis Terminal. We also got the gallery removed from Armory, replaced by, no case. But also at the same time, we did see Copenhagen capsules added to the game recently. Not Copenhagen. Why am I saying Copenhagen? Budapest capsules added to the game recently. And again, those have a lot of the same gambling mechanics as cases. Like, they're pretty much exactly the same, actually. And Valve is still making, money hand over fist on stuff like the Fever case and all the other active duty cases and stuff like that we have right now. So it's not like, Valve has just pushed cases all the way to the side or anything like that. They're still making millions and millions and millions all the time off this stuff. But an EU committee, the Internal Market and Consumer Protection Committee, today adopted a report by popular vote that encourages the European Commission to tackle several harms that minors face online today. The vote to adopt the report passed with 32 votes in favor, 5 against, and with 9 abstentions. In addition to proposing a minimum age of 13 for kids to access social media with parental permission, or 16 without the permission, and some other recommendations, the committee also recommends a loot box ban. So I did what every person does these days, and I went and asked my good friend ChatGPT what the heck this all means and what the possibilities are here. And again, AI I don't think is always the place to go. AI doesn't always have great logic or great reasoning or whatever, but AI can often give you pretty good breakdowns of topics, especially topics with a ton of nuance and, legal jargon and things that you don't really know about, whatever. It can give you a good basis of knowledge. So again, take everything here with a grain of salt, but I did think this was pretty interesting what ChatGPT had to say about all this, and I think it at least gives some ideas of what could potentially happen and how worried about this happening we should be. So I asked ChatGPT, I said, do you think the new laws that the EU is proposing will eventually lead to a ban of cases in Counter-Strike 2? Do you think this would prevent Valve from just creating new cases, or even lead to them deleting all the old cases that people already own entirely? Because again, that is two completely different outcomes, and that's what people don't understand. It is very, very possible that Valve, from here on out, doesn't want to create any new cases. Maybe we just get Genesis terminals, maybe we just get Armory stuff, whatever, but they keep all the old cases in the game. And in that world, old cases are going to skyrocket. Old cases are going to go to the moon. Old cases would be the best investment in CS2 history if that was the case. The other outcome being, hey, Valve decides to remove all cases altogether, and then cases are literally worth zero, and people would, lose millions of dollars, if not even more, tens of millions of dollars, I don't even know. So ChatGPT says, great, that's a really smart question. Short answer, yes, there's a non-trivial risk to CS2 style cases from upcoming EU regulation, but a full ban and mass deletion of existing cases is not the most likely outcome. And again, when I have these people in my comments telling me that I'm stupid or I'm crazy or I'm, taking way too big of a risk, first of all, to have great reward, there has to be great risk. There is no, way to get insane rewards on your money or, really rewards in anything in life without taking great risks. So by investing in CS has had insane returns over the past decade. It has beat, crypto, it's beat stocks, it's beat, pretty much everything. Like, if you look at the graphs of CS and you look at people who have been in CS, they have made riches over the past decade. It has been absolutely insane. And again, with that, there is great risk. There is the risk that you don't even own the stuff. You are purchasing stuff in a video game that Valve owns and Valve controls. You could get banned anytime. Valve can change trading anytime. Valve can, remove trading anytime. And same thing when you're owning cases. There is the risk of something happening to cases, of the fundamentals changing, of the rules changing. Valve controls the game. Valve controls the rulebook. They can do whatever they want. So there is always a risk. And I understand that there is a risk. I'm not saying there is no risk. And just like ChatGPT is saying here, there is a non-trivial risk to, cases being banned, or the case system changing, or cases being removed, or cases being altered, or whatever. And that's just the cost of doing business. That's the price of playing the game. If you want to have the amount of gains that people have made in cases over the past couple of years, which has been insane. Again, millions of dollars have been made by people in cases over the past 3, 4, 5 years in Counter-Strike. And with great reward has come great risk, great volatility, all these other things. But again, from what ChatGPT is saying, they do not think this is the most likely outcome. And again, when I'm seeing these people in the comment section, whatever, they're acting like the most likely outcome is for these cases to be removed. But that's not what they're saying here. So at least not yet. And again, things could change in the future. Who knows? Based on where things currently stand, here's a breakdown of the risk, possible scenarios, and why Valve might not just scrap everything. Again, Valve makes a ton of money off this stuff. Valve is heavily incentivized to do everything they possibly can in their power to not remove old cases, to create more new cases in the future, whatever. Like, this is a huge moneymaker for Valve. And at the end of the day, I feel pretty comfortable having my incentives lined up with where Valve's incentives are, and having my money lined up with where Valve's money is. So why the EU is looking at loot boxes in cases? The European Parliament recently pushed in a report to prohibit gambling style mechanisms such as loot boxes in games accessible to minors. There's also concern over microtransactions, in-game currencies, pay to win, randomized content in games. A German I don't know how you say that, initiative is specifically targeting loot boxes for stronger youth protections, clearer disclosure, age limits, spending warnings, etc. So again, there's just a rule where we start to get, there's a world where we start to get more rules, more protections, more disclosure, more, regulations around cases and loot boxes and stuff like that, rather than an outright removal. That is also very, very possible. And again, already in certain European countries, we've seen, different things happening. We've seen changes going on, stuff like that. I believe even in China, everything works a little bit differently. So there are ways that they can change things without completely removing cases. That's also something that people seem to really be discounting. But there are calls to harmonize EU-level rules so that games must disclose odds, limit spending, maybe require self-exclusion mechanisms, which all of those would all be fine. All of those are probably even a good idea, and all of those would not make cases go to zero. Some countries like Belgium already treat loot boxes as gambling under local law, which, again, they probably should be. Regulators are concerned about random rewards like loot boxes being embedded gambling-like mechanics, which, again, they most likely are. They are. The Digital Fairness Act is being developed. While currently it's more focused on dark patterns of manipulative design, it could expand into loot box mechanics. There's a real risk that under 18 users could be restricted from loot box mechanics or require stricter controls, which, again, would not make cases go to zero and is also probably a good idea and, not necessarily something that I would even be against. So potential outcomes for CS2, here's what, ChatGPT or our AI overlords think are some possible outcomes here. Here's where things might go. Riskier or more likely scenarios, age restrictions. Valve could be required to restrict case openings for minors or require stricter verification in the EU. This would align with proposals to make loot box mechanics off limits or heavily regulated for underage users. Some EU countries might push for age verification or even spending limits to protect younger players. There could be transparency requirements. Valve might need to disclose detailed drop rates, probabilities for all content inside cases. They also might be required to provide tools like self-exclusion. Failing to comply with these could lead to fines or sanctions, whatever. That's fine. And then there could also be a regulation without a total ban. Rather than a full ban, we're more likely to see strong regulation, making cases more like regulated gambling products for minors, but still available for adults, which is what I think they should be. I think adults should be able to do whatever the fuck they want with their money, and they should be left alone. And I think kids should be protected with rules and regulations and laws and restrictions. I think that is the world that makes the most sense. I think, removing cases for adults is absolutely ridiculous. I think adults can make their own decisions and should be able to make their own decisions with their lives and with their money. Less likely for now, speculative scenarios. Valve deletes all old cases. It's very unlikely Valve will retroactively delete all existing cases just because of EU regulation. That would be a huge technical, legal, and PR nightmare. Again, Valve does not want to fuck over a bunch of their players. They do not want to make a bunch of their players lose money. They do not want to kill their whole economy or kill their game, because that does hurt them in the long run in a big, big, big way. Again, Counter-Strike is a huge moneymaker for Valve. Also, many regulators focus, this is a huge part here, many regulators focus on future sales or mechanics rather than retroactive removal of virtual items already acquired by players. So that is a very, very big key thing here. Any laws or regulations or rules that we have coming in could mostly be focused on future mechanics and future items, which again, Valve is working on stuff like the Genesis terminals or Armory or whatever, rather than removing old items. From a business perspective, Valve makes significant revenue from cases, so fully eliminating them would be counterproductive unless absolutely forced. Valve make new cases entirely. They could restrict where they sell or allow opening for EU minors, but stopping all new cases is unlikely unless the law explicitly bans them globally, which current proposals don't clearly do. More likely is a hybrid model. Cases remain available, but with stricter controls and transparency. And also it's possible Valve moves to KYC or maybe gets a gambling license or something like that, which I don't really think is what's going to happen, but what ChatGPT is betting on, what they think personally is going to happen personally for an AI robot is crazy, but whatever. Valve will probably not delete all cases or fully kill them worldwide, but they'll adapt for the EU. We'll likely see age verification, especially for minors, and possibly spending limits or lockout tools. Cases will remain for adult users, but Valve might need to increase transparency, drop rates, warnings to comply. Valve could lean on existing systems, Steam account age, parental controls to enforce restrictions rather than redesign everything. Now, again, some things you need to watch out for. You need to watch out for the EU legislation process, track the Digital Fairness Act. You need to watch out for national laws. If different EU countries are making changes, keep an eye on that. You have to watch out for Valve's response. How is Valve going to respond publicly and in their filings? Do they warn about regulation risks in their financial reporting? And for the skin and case market impact, if opening is restricted for minors, it might reduce supply of open skins, potentially affecting skins and case market. Changes could affect demand for cases or likely to shift how and where people buy them. So again, there is a lot of things going on here. And again, we have seen a dip in case prices. Cases are starting to go back up now, but over the past month or 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, we did start to see a dip in prices. People got really worried, not only with the retake update, as some people started to lose, faith in the CS market and stuff like like that. But also, once Valve, released the Genesis terminal, and once we didn't get a new case in the Armory, people started to get really, really worried about cases. And again, I've seen an uptick in my comments about people being like I said, hey, you're an idiot, you're crazy, how are you doing this with so much risk, whatever. But like I said, I'm not worried. I do not think the most likely outcome at this point is for cases to be removed. I do not think cases will be removed. If cases do eventually get removed, I would be pretty shocked. Obviously, I'd be pretty shocked because I'm putting my money where my mouth is. Also, there is kind of like a phenomenon in the world. I've heard about people talking about this too, where like nothing ever happens, nothing ever changes, whatever. People always talk about, these once in a lifetime outcomes or these sensational things that could happen or these insane, black swan events or whatever. But guess what? More often than not, nothing really happens. Nothing really changes. People threaten stuff, regulators try to look like they're doing something, whatever, but oftentimes it's much to do about nothing and nothing really ever ends up changing. I do think it's possible we could get some regulations, some restrictions, and it's even, could even be a likely outcome, or it could even be necessary that we should have some of those things coming. But either way, I am not worried about Valve removing old cases in the long run. And like I said, even if the case market changes going forward and the case system change going forward in the future, that would honestly be a great thing for these older cases, and they would go up in value even more than the trajectory that they're already on, as some of the best investments in all of CS2 and really some of the best investments in my opinion in the world. So I'm still buying cases, I'm still holding cases. I don't think they're going to get removed, but I do think it's a very, very interesting discussion that a ton of people are talking about right now, and we'll have to wait and see what the hell happens next. But that's pretty much it for this video today, guys. Hope I catch you in the next one. Until then, peace.